G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright people, midweek report time. There's quite a good bit to talk about. It's been a lively couple of days in the world of boxing, certainly at least for news breaking. I think we will start because I think this kind of sachets quite well into what I want to talk about straight after. It's kind of working into it. You see what I'm doing here? I'm doing getting there. Before it was just random. It still is random. Don't be kidding. But we'll talk about Mauricio Sulaiman and Deontay Wilder because he shed some light on the situation with regard to what Deontay Wilder is going to do next with his career. Now, he said that he spoke with him a couple of months ago and he's doing great. He's looking forward to resuming his boxing career. Mauricio Sulaiman's always spoke very highly of Deontay Wilder. I think was it after he fought Ortiz the first time. He was really then become, maybe even before then really, but he was really becoming a darling with the WBC. He's always spoke very highly of Deontay Wilder. He's been in Wilder's corner a few times before some of his defences. So Sulaiman very, very close with Deontay Wilder. And in terms of Wilder resuming his boxing career, well, look, I mean, I personally feel as though Deontay Wilder should call it a day after the Fury loss. I mean, he took in both fights, he's taken essentially the same as someone who's been in a car crash, if you think about it. And you look at the last fight, broken hand, concussion, probably, a lot of bruising around the face, probably a lot of physical damage to the body as well. He took some body shots as well. Wilder has taken abuse those last two Fury fights, and he's getting, I think he's 30. Correct me if I'm wrong, he could be either going on 36 or he's going on 36. He's in the wrong side of 30 now anyway. But saying that, Deontay Wilder, he's not beating Tyson Fury, but I love watching Deontay Wilder fight. My days, he has probably been, certainly for heavyweights, my favourite heavyweight to watch since 2014, maybe even earlier than that, because it's like when you watch Deontay Wilder fight, you're just anticipating that shot. Even when he's in a boring enough fight like the Gerald Washington fight, you're just anticipating any minute that right hand's going to come. It's just like, that right hand, when is it going to land? When is it going to land? You're sitting at the edge of your seat constantly for him. He's just tremendous fun to watch. As a person, I don't really have much time for Deontay Wilder, but as a fighter, one of my favourite fighters still, but I do think after the Fury fight, it may be time to hang it up. But saying that, there are still fights there for him. Although one thing about Wilder and looking after his health, this fight, if it did ever happen, and with the WBC, I wouldn't rule it out, would be Wilder versus Dillian Whyte. I mean, talk about bad for Dillian Whyte's health, that would be. Because I've always felt that Deontay Wilder, even if they'd met in 2018, would have won that fight. And, I'm maybe in the minority who thinks that actually it probably wouldn't have been that hard. Looking at it from a stylistic point of view, I mean, Dillian Whyte would have been his head would have got taken clean off his shoulders early, because Wilder would have found a home for that right hand on Dillian Whyte early. And I don't even think it would have took a flush right hand to hurt Dillian Whyte. I mean, that really, even now, just thinking about it, that fight is such a fight that Deontay Wilder would be. I'd make him massive, overwhelming favourite. I think he'd take Dillian Whyte's head clean off his shoulders even now. But even still, there's a lot of fights still there that I think he could be in there with, Robert Helenius, PBC guy, please don't have an Ortiz rematch. A trilogy fight, we don't want that. But I remember Eddie Hearn was talking about Derek Chisora against Deontay Wilder earlier this year, and for the love of God, no. Just for Derek Chisora's own health, where he is at this stage in his career, that is catastrophic matchmaking. It really, truly is. I mean, that right there, obviously it's not going to happen, but that's catastrophic matchmaking. So we'll see what happens with Deontay Wilder. Does he think, with Wilder's power, anything is possible. I mean, Wilder's punching power is tremendous. It's unbelievable. Now, sashaying into what I want to talk about as well, because Vladimir, I want to talk about Vladimir Klitschko now in a sec, but I was mentioning Derek Chisora, and the reason why I mention him is for the simple reason is that it looks likely that he's going to be back out on July the 9th Alright, Eddie Hearn has also confirmed that it's not going to be on Fight Camp, so he's not having Fight Camp this year, looking to maybe do it next year. Well, I'll maybe talk about that more in a separate video or maybe later on in the report, but we'll talk about this fight between Helenius and Chisora. Penciled in, obviously, for the 9th of July. That is the week after Joe Parker versus Joe Joyce, which is still yet to be officially announced, and I wish they would, because I want to go to that fight. I've already booked flights and accommodation, so if that fight doesn't happen, yeah, and it's Frank Warren as well, so you know, you're never going to be, you're always worried when you're, a Hearn show you're kind of like, alright, it'll be alright, but with a Warren show you're just like, please, you don't feel comfy until you see the guys weigh in, and even then you're just like, please, for God's sake, don't let anything happen. Wasn't it Frank Warren where he had Carl Frampton? Was it a Frank Warren show? I don't remember where Carl Frampton was meant to fight in, was it 2017? I think it was 2017. It was the summer of 2017. And I remember it was. But he was meant to fight. Forget who he was meant to fight. God almighty, I forgot now. I can't remember his name. But do you remember where like he weighed in and he missed weight? And I think he said like, no, was it his opponent fell or didn't? Something happened. It was a freak injury and it was a real kind of, it was an injury, was it? That kind of one. But do you remember, I can't remember the opponent. I think it was 2017. And they weighed in. And even then the fight didn't happen. And they just binned the whole show. It was crazy. Crazy. But yeah, Chisora versus Helenius. I've never rated Helenius. Go back and look at my videos on him. I've always said it. I don't rate Helenius. I never did, even when he was undefeated. Yeah, he had some wins against people like Gerald Washington where he looked explosive. But I was always like, this guy's a knockout waiting to happen. I didn't expect it would be Helenius to knock him out. I guess looking back in hindsight, stylistically, that was always going to be a horrible fight for Kalnacki. But he really, like, he looked shot. Like, Helenius has been looking over the hill for years, but he looked like Adonis Stevenson sharpshooting him there. Obviously, he's not southpaw, but he looked, you know, like he was in his prime against Helenius back on the Wilder Fury undercard. And that's a bad sign. And I think that this fight, it's a fun fight. I mean, you both guys come forward, they throw a lot of punches. I could see this. Like, I'm telling you now, this fight stylistically is going to be very entertaining if and when we get it. It looks pretty fairly likely we'll get it on July the 9th. And I got to say, that is an entertaining fight. Stylistically, I really like that fight. I really do. I think that fight could be extremely fun. Could be extremely fan-friendly. Eddie Hearn gave his thoughts on Tyson Fury and the WBC situation as well. He says, I don't know why he needs time to retire, but look, we all know he's not retiring. He won't vacate, and I hope he fights the winner of AJ Usyk. As do I. I agree with what Eddie Hearn says there, that I don't think Fury will retire either. And I do hope that he does fight the winner of AJ Usyk. And we see undisputed. Mauricio Sullivan stated that they will not push Tyson Fury for a decision on whether he's vacating his WBC title or not. We spoke with him, and we're going to be speaking with him in the near future, but we're going to give him the time he needs. And see, here's the thing. Alright, the WBC, the WBC are horrible when it comes to this, right? Because look at Vitaly Klitschko. Vitaly Klitschko had his last fight against Manuel Charr in 2012. It was May or June 2014 when someone finally fought for that vacant. They have 2 years. And I think he was still champion when Stavern beat Areola because it was Stavern who was mandatory. And he beat Areola to get that mandatory spot in May or June of 2013. Klitschko was still champion, and it was only the following year, literally almost, I think exactly a year maybe, that they fought for the vacant title. That's 2 years. And as well as that, when Klitschko was champion after Lennox, and when he beat Kirk Johnson after Lennox Lewis retired, he had that inactivity. What was it, 3 years out of the ring or more nearly? I remember Hasim Rahman was mandatory for Vitaly Klitschko. I can't remember who he beat, but he won an interim title. I can't remember who he beat to win that. I actually seen the fight, not live, but I rewatched it, but I can't remember who it was he beat. It escapes me. It might have been David Tua. It might have even been David Tua, actually. I'm not sure. Not 100% sure. Or was it? Look, I'm not 100% sure, but he beat someone anyway for the vacant title, or it could have been Jamil McCline or someone like that. Crap heavyweights back then. You know, they really wasn't stacked. But he was made interim champion. He was elevated to full champion because Klitschko at the time was retired because he was injured. But they made him champion emeritus or recess, whatever you want to call it. So he was able to take 3 years out of the ring, come back, have an instant crack at St. Peter when he came back. I mean, it's the WBC do these kind of things. So, like, they're talking about maybe having, like, you know, a tournament kind of here where they said that they could stage tournament style. Because Wilder is number one. He's not fought since defeat. Why is he number one? Joe Joyce number 2, Joe Parker number 3. But look, I'd say again, hopefully, get this fight made, get this fight announced so I can get my tickets. And that's likely going to be for the interim title. Frank Sanchez number 4, Ruiz 5, I always get this name wrong. Makhmadaliev, because I always get mixed up between these guys because there's guys in lower weight divisions. Arslanbek, Makhmadaliev. Probably been butchering the name wrong, you know me. Dylan White, there's the fall from grace, down at number 7. Luis Ortiz in at number 8, and they don't have the rest of the rankings there. But I'd take 2 of them guys out of there because they ain't going to be in it. I reckon Joe Joyce and Joe Parker, hopefully, because I want to see that fight, and stick whoever in there. And that's likely what we're going to get if they do that tournament, if they do decide, Fury does decide to vacate. And look, it wouldn't shock me if that tournament happens. Fury decides, I'm coming back facing the winner, and he'll get a straight crack. And that's the way the WBC seem to do things. Sticking with heavyweights, Klitschko, Vladimir, was on Uncensored by a certain, you know, he was with that, whatever you want to call him, Pierce Morgan. Horrible, just horrible human being, loathsome human being. Good Lord. He gets invited to funerals to remind people, hey, things could be worse. But Vladimir Klitschko was on his program, and he confirmed that he was actually planning on coming back. Now, he's teased this for a while. He's been teasing this for a while. You've seen clips of him sparring. He wanted to break Foreman's record. How old is Klitschko now? 45? 46? Maybe even 45 and around that. He said, I was thinking I should tweet Tyson Fury, last dance. I didn't do it because mine was on different matters in the world. Obviously, situations going on there in Ukraine. That was what he's referring to. I think Klitschko, he's teased it before. He's teasing it here. Stay away. Not because I don't like you as a person, but just because it's just not going to work out. You know, Father Time is undefeated, as the saying goes, and it just won't work out. The Klitschko fought Joshua, that was 5 years ago. It was a quick 5 years. But that just ain't going to work out. It just won't work out. It just won't. In terms of other news, Jaime Munguia will face Jimmy Kelly in super middleweight clash on June 11th. I mean, what the hell? Now, I know Munguia has been tied at middleweight, but he did absolutely nothing at middleweight. I mean, here's his resume. Trio Johnson's as old as the pyramids. And he beat him, I believe, was on a cut. Camille Samerte, you know, the guy who Triple G beat. And Triple G put him in his place straight away and beat him from pillar to post. Good fight against Rosado, but Rosado lost his lost the fight after this. And then he fought that Bollard. I mean, really, that's a horrible run at middleweight. I mean, there's not even a world title fight in there. So going to super middle, we'll see how Munguia. Look, I like watching Munguia. He's got a fun style. He's entertaining. And yes, when we forget when he won his world title, he was only about 21 years old. He's still quite young. But God Almighty, I mean, that was a bad run at middleweight. So let's see. In terms of Conor Ben, Eddie Hearn's talked about him. He's weighing up options for July or just go in. Biggest fight possible in August, September. He'll likely go straight into a big one. I'm talking a big one. Wow, the stabilizers are off. Wow. He's been unleashed. I hope when he says big one, he means Jose Ramirez, because I like that fight, and if he beats him, all the credit, and not Maurice Hooker. Maurice Hooker is a good step up. I won't turn my nose up to that fight in that regard, in the sense of it's a great learning fight, and I believe he'll come through it. But please don't sell it as, you know, big, massive fight. I hope to God we see Ramirez. I like that fight for Ben. I think it makes sense. I wouldn't pick Ben in that fight, but I do think it's a great learning fight. He needs that. You know, beating the Chris Algieri's, the Chris Van Herdens, the other guy, what was his name? Granados. He's past that. You know, he's long past that. The Van Herden fight didn't need to happen. We need to see him step up. So let's see who it is. I hope to God we really do get to see some good guys in there who can test him. And look, Conor Benn, much improved fighter, but what does he gain beating up these washed up guys who can't punch? We need to see Ben, because what happens, like, just imagine, right? Just imagine this, right? At least if we see Ben in there with guys who can really test him, and if he comes through with happy days, if he doesn't, we can reassess. But imagine you put him in there against someone like Boots Ennis for a world title. Say Errol Spence moves up, vacates a world title, he meets Boots Ennis for a vacant world title. He will get absolutely his head taken clean off his shoulders in a couple of rounds, and you've set him up to failure. At least if he has a couple of good checks in these fights, you know, against someone like, you know, I wouldn't see it as a big fight, but I would see it as a good test. Someone like a Hooker, or if he decided to fight Mean Machine. And I think Mean Machine, I'd give Ben a good shot in that fight against him. He's huge, Mean Machine, big unit of a man at 147. But if Ben could come through that, you know, he might get tested, but it would set him up well for world level. But just, you know, beating guys like Algeria and things like that, it just ain't gonna work. Ain't gonna work in my opinion. You know, it's good. No, as I say, it ain't gonna work. I mean, it is good in one sense because it is an awkward kind of style. You're getting in there with guys who are trying to survive and you're getting rid of them. I retract that when I say it's not gonna work. It'll help bring him along as a fighter, but in terms of just seeing everything, like he's fighting rinse and repeat, washed up guys. You need to see someone with a bit of life and see how that goes. I think I'm gonna. Well, actually, there's still probably more to talk about, but Josh Taylor, this one, I kind of understand where this is coming from, but at the same time, it's against the wrong guy. So Josh Taylor looks set to stay at super lightweight, light welterweight, to defend his. He's been stripped of WBA, so it'll be WBC, IBF, and WBO against mandatory challenger with the WBC, Jose Zepeda. Todd DeBuff has stated from Top Rank. Now, Taylor's saying, look, I like this fight against Zepeda, and Jose Zepeda is a tremendous fighter. He's one of the best. He's in the top 5 at 140 pounds, certainly, no doubt. He's had some great fights as Jose Zepeda. I like this fight from Josh Taylor. I like it stylistically, but I do think Jack Catterall, you know something, right? And this is the worst. This is something that irritates me so much about boxing. If Jack Catterall if Jack Catterall was a bigger draw, have no doubt, all 4 of them sanctioned bodies would be ordering a rematch. If Jack Catterall commanded, it wouldn't have to be Canelo Alvarez type of money, but if he was in any way a big draw, where he's making good money and there was money to be made from Jack Catterall, there'd be all 4 sanctioned bodies would call for an immediate rematch. They would. It's the fact that Jack Catterall is not really known outside the UK. Obviously, the decision, the horrible decision, has given Jack Catterall more of a name. You know, worldwide it was talked about. You know, a lot of places, but he's still not a massive draw. And I think if he was to be ordering rematches, it's the fact that he's not there just saying, be on your way. You had your shot, you lost. What do you want us to do about it? Disgraceful. And I feel bad for him in that regard. And Josh Taylor, look, Josh Taylor at 147. With the benefit of looking at it, you know, from the outside looking in, who are Top Rank really going to get him? Because Terence Crawford's not a Top Rank fighter anymore. Terence Crawford had trouble getting fights, you know, with decent guys at 147 when he was with Top Rank. So Josh Taylor, I can't imagine is going to fare any better. So from that sense, you can kind of understand why he's staying at 140. But I think his days at 140 are well and truly behind him, to be honest with you. He looked terrible on the scales last time around. Maybe, I think, like, look, genuinely, part of me does think maybe that's in part to the fact that Josh Taylor really didn't. Look, I didn't really take Jack Catterall too serious, I'll admit that. I didn't give him the credit he obviously deserves. I looked at him as kind of a Josh Taylor will beat the crap out of this guy and stop him in a couple of rounds. And I kind of thought it would be a bit of a blowout. And how wrong was I? Maybe Josh Taylor looked upon that fight at the same time. Maybe he didn't get his weight cut in time, thinking, you know what, I can do a hard weight cut and still beat this guy relatively easy. It wasn't the case. It was not. It was first thing from it. Maybe with Zepeda he'll do the weight easier. Maybe, I don't know. I would love to see Jack Catterall get his shot. He deserves it. He really does. And again, as I say, if he was a bigger sale, if he was a bigger draw, if he was a cash cow, mark my words, have no doubt, you'd have them sanctioned bodies saying, no, get in there with Jack Catterall. We're ordering a rematch. Fight him. Yep, rematch fight. We want our paydays. But Jack Catterall, unfortunately, he's not. He's not that type of fighter. Unfortunately, seems a great guy, but he just doesn't seem to be the biggest draw in the world, and it hinders you in that regard, because you will have sanctioning bodies who, if you make them money, they'll look at you and think, well, you're making us money, so yeah, you fight for our title here, you fight for it, sanctioning fees, money, draw, yeah, you fight for our title. If you're not, it's a case of, well, you had your shot, you lost, you're not going to make us that much more money, so what's the point? It is that way inclined, I think, the sport of boxing. We've seen that in the past with robberies, you know, where like it's been against someone who is not, and like look at John Ryder against Cam Smith. I mean, like, did you see uproar from any of the sanctioned bodies with that? No. You see it. I remember when Murata got robbed against what was his name, Hassan Ndam in Japan, and he's a big star over there, and that was a robbery. It was a horrible robbery, but WBA were straight away, yep, rematch, straight in there, rematch, yep, straight in there. You know, they'll do it with people who make the money, but if it's in the case if they're not making money, they're probably like, what the hell, we don't care. I think that's the way it is. People, I leave it with that. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope I gave you something to think about, and yeah, we'll see how we go. I tend to kind of wind it down late on in the week, take Thursday, Friday off. If there's any news, I will bring it to you. If there's not, we will chat on Saturday. That's the deal. If there's any news, I feel like I need to kind of take the few days as well, just to recoup, because it's a lot of things I do outside of here as well, and I kind of enjoy it. And I'm always out with my friend on Thursdays, so it kind of doesn't free up the evening. But we'll see. If there's any news breaking, you know what, you'll hear from me. And if not, we'll chat to you Saturday. Hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could, people. We are getting there. We're over 7.5k. Over 7.5k. We're doing well, aren't we? Doing well. This little channel I started a few years ago, and look where it is now. You see, you know, just keep it going. Speak well. Try to speak well anyway, and you know, talk about things that you're passionate about, and you'll get somewhere. You know, motivational speaker, your boy. But now, people, I appreciate everyone who tunes in. Hope you've all enjoyed. I hope you're having a great day. I'll talk to you. Peace.